Welcome to the City. I'm Anthony Wilson, the Public Information Officer for the City of San Angelo. And today we have a special episode of the City. Joining us for the entire length of this show is our State Representative, Drew Darby. Representative Darby, thanks for being with us.
I'm glad to be with you today, Anthony.
Now, it's hard to imagine that there are people in our community who still may not know who you are, since you've served for quite a time now as our State Representative. But for those who aren't in the know, I'd like you just to introduce yourself and tell whatever you'd like folks to know about you.
Well, I'm a hometown boy. I'm born and reared here in San Angelo, went to Central High School, and went on to the University of Texas on an athletic scholarship, football scholarship, and chose to move back and raise my family. And I've gone up through the city ranks, commissions, boards, city council, that sort of thing. And in 2002, when our previous representative retired, Rob Janelle, I ran for election as state rep back in 2002, and was unsuccessful. Actually lost being in the runoff by 46 votes. And so I redoubled my effort to be a part of the community and worked on the water advisory board. I served as chairman of that, and I was on the Economic Development Corporation, and then the opportunity came 4 years later to run again for state rep, and got elected in 2006 and started serving in 2007. So since 2007, I've been the state representative for this part of our wonderful state. Originally had 4 counties in my district, and now have 9 counties in my district.
Now, you mentioned that you've served on some city boards and commissions, and including the city council. How do you think that experience has helped you, or at least initially helped you, as a state legislator?
Well, let me tell you, Anthony, it's a wonderful experience, and it teaches you how to build consensus. Our community is not all one way or not all another way. We have vast geographic differences between areas of the city, and we have to blend those with different and competing interests to form good public policy. And I value my service on the city council. I think it's a model that has served the legislature well. The typical representative and the typical senator have come up through the ranks, either through their service on the city council, or as mayor, or as school board. And so that's been, in the past, the traditional model of the representative. However, this past session, we started seeing a different type of representative being elected, and that is an advocate. A single issue person that proposes and advances a single issue, has never served in a position to build consensus, and they're simply advocates for an issue. Well, that may serve them well getting to the position, but it does not serve them well when it comes to governing. And there's a whole lot of difference between being elected and the political campaign to get elected, and then governing. And it's sad to say that we're seeing, particularly in the legislature, we're seeing folks who have not had that background of building consensus, of trying to give and take. Since when did the word compromise develop a bad connotation? That's what our country was built upon, is the separation of powers and the ability to work together to find good public policy. And so I think that my service on the city council, we had a real interesting time when I was on the council then, and I learned to work with folks who didn't actually share every political view that I had or every goal that I had for this city. But I think we set the tone. We tried to work together to find good policy that would advance the goals of the city and the people that live in our city forward. And so I would not trade for that experience, Anthony. It was invaluable in preparing me for what I'm doing now at the state level.
At the state level now, as a state lawmaker, are there municipal issues that you're involved with, both with our city council and with our city management?
Oh, every day. The good thing about the Texas legislature is that we meet every other year. We don't meet every year, but we meet 140 days in the even-numbered. In the odd-numbered years, we're elected and run in even-numbered years, and then serve down in Austin in odd-numbered years, actually have a regular session. So prior to meeting, I always have conferences with our city manager, our mayor, other elected officials in order to coordinate what are the goals of our community for the next legislative session. Because you have to prepare in advance, have to get bills drafted and initiatives moved forward, build consensus again. Even before the session starts, you have to say this is what we need in our community, and so we get a bill drafted and we start building an effort to get people to buy into that particular goal. So coordinating with local city officials is absolutely critical to my job. And then during the session, I would see our city manager and mayor at least once a month, if not once every 2 weeks. As bills move through the process, something jumps up on our radar and say, well, wait a minute, this is bad for San Angelo, or this is good for San Angelo, we need to move this forward. I can remember one particular bill late in the session, not this past session, but the session before. It had to do with the ability of groundwater districts to deliver water out of certain counties. Well, a bill advanced by Tom Craddock in Midland had established there was a higher limit on the number of people in a county or city that could get water delivered from a groundwater district. But unbeknownst to us, somebody had put a floor in it. And that floor, in effect, cut off the city of San Angelo and Odessa and Abilene from the CMRWD, which is the Colorado Municipal Water District. So, in effect, if that bill had passed, San Angelo could not have delivered water from CMRWD. So we went to work right quickly, overnight in fact, to get that particular bill changed and modified so we could continue to receive water from the CMRWD. But sometimes we meet on an emergency basis, sometimes we meet proactively, and sometimes we just meet just to touch base and see what else the city may need. So it's an active relationship that we have every moment while the legislature is in session.
I think one can rightly assume that one of the issues that you're always dealing with city officials is water and San Angelo's water supply. I'd like your thoughts on how the city has approached supplementing its its surface water supply today.
Well, thank you for that question, and it's one that I've been passionate about for a number of years. When I was on the city council in the late 90s and early 2000s, water was critical then. It's been critical ever since San Angelo was founded, for that matter. But I served as chairman of the Water Advisory Board, and we looked at over 100 options for the city to get water, and we evaluated over many months each particular option. How far is it? How much water would be available? What's the expense? Not only in acquiring the water, but the political expense. I mean, is there litigation involved? Is there options for this particular source that would be advantageous to the city? And so we evaluated all that. And quite frankly, the Hickory Aquifer was at the top because we had gone through the acquisition stage. We had bought the rights. We had litigated the rights with a groundwater district that was formed to prevent San Angelo from getting the water. But we'd litigated all of that, and we had gone through the process of even acquiring right-of-way. You may or may not know, but San Angelo has had that right-of-way for a number of years, but we just never did build the pipeline. In the early I think in the 80s, we were starting to lay the pipeline, but then it rained and the city had other objectives and priorities, and we didn't actually build the pipeline. So when we looked at it in late 1999 and 2000, Hickory remained the most viable option, closest, most inexpensive to the city. And so I encouraged the city back then to start the process of laying that pipeline. And then, of course, as we moved in during the period that I became state representative, it became even more apparent to me, and I became more committed to the idea that we need to begin the process of laying that pipeline. Let's get organized. Let's make sure we have the financing. I have a relationship with the governor, lieutenant governor, and the Water Development Board because of my service on Appropriations Committee, that we could make sure that the Water Development Board knew exactly how important that project is and was to the city of San Angelo. And so when San Angelo wanted to move this project forward and we needed a $120 million loan, well, we made sure that the Water Development Board considered this to be the #1 priority in the state, and so for a loan. And so what that did for the ratepayers of San Angelo was mean that we saved about $80 million in interest charges over the life of this project. And that goes to the direct benefit of the people who buy water here in San Angelo. So I can tell you that the Hickory Aquifer and the process of securing that right, buying those rights back in the early 70s, the process of litigating that and determining exactly how much water the city could get and over what period of time they could get it. And then, of course, the planning of the project is something that I'm particularly proud of, and I trumpet this city and the leadership of this city every day on their foresight in making sure that water option is available. I hope and pray, Anthony, that the good Lord will send bountiful rain this next year. But if we don't have bountiful rain, then the only thing between San Angelo and trucking water in here will be the Hickory pipeline. And so it is a godsend that this city has been proactive in advancing that project forward.
We're talking with State Representative Drew Darby, and we'll continue this conversation in a moment. But first, we're going to spotlight another outstanding city employee, our safety coordinator, Charles Hagan.
My name is Charles Hagan. I'm the safety coordinator for the city of San Angelo, and I've been working here for 3 years. Well, I cover a lot of areas. I cover a lot of training. So like the new hire orientation when we hire new employees. I'll start with training and basic safety orientation, hazardous communication, bloodborne pathogens, defensive driving, first aid, and CPR. And I also do investigations into accidents and injuries and help determine what we can do to prevent them in the future. But I think it's important because we don't want people to get hurt on the job. And the supervisors and stuff, they're all focused on meeting the needs of the citizens, taking care of our infrastructure, and that just puts me in a position to look for things that we can do to improve safety so people don't get hurt on the job. Every day is different. There's always a new challenge, a new response, whether I have to learn something or go out and investigate an accident or just go out and investigate a job site to look for safety concerns. And so it's not really a boring job at all. I do a lot of movement, a lot of moving around, a lot of different tasks. I did 21 years in the Army, and then I did some security corrections, and I did developmental training for the military as well. The people I work with, I think I've been well received, and I think I got a good working relationship with all the departments. And their support is really paramount to our success. If I don't have the support of the departments, then I'm beating my head against the wall, so to say. I'd be out there on my own. Just the training more than anything, and that comes from my military background. I enjoy training, so I encourage and push training for the departments. And if we're trained the right way, we train the way we're supposed to do things, we're going to learn to do it the safe way. And so I focus a lot on training. Changing the mindset. There's a lot of people that hold on to the old way of doing things, and there's newer and progressive ways and better ways to approach, and just to try to get that mindset changed to accept change for the better. I try to encourage them to, take the safe approach. Don't rush to failure. If you go too fast, or you take the shortcut, or you don't wait for the right equipment and try and do it and manhandle it, you're going to cause an injury. So even though we have timelines to get the mission done, I encourage them not to rush to failure, get the right equipment to do the job the right way and the safest way, so that we can all go home and come back to work the next day. I follow the accident and injury rates, and as long as we're trying to make a reduction in those, then we're going to be successful. And then there's the return on investment, so to say, is if somebody gets hurt, well, now it takes 2 people to do that guy's job, because they still got to do their job and his job. So there's a loss there as well when somebody gets hurt. So if we can get people to realize that it's important not to get hurt on the job and take the safe route, in the end we'll actually save more money. I spend my spare time with my wife, Sally, and my children, Sam and Grace. They're 2 and 4. They're a pleasure to be around. They can drive you crazy, they can make you laugh. So it's never ending there, and it's a lot of fun, and that's usually where we spend our free time. It's not too big and not too small. It's a good little town to be in. I don't like large cities. I'm a country person by choice, but you know, San Angelo provides a lot of neat things. There's always something to do with the kids and the family, so that's always helpful. Nobody gets hurt, no accidents, and that's what we strive for. Laughing with the kids, having a good time with the kids, playing with them, and getting out and doing things. I love to watch them grow, and I love to watch them when they challenge themselves or when they're challenged and they step up to the plate and do something. It's a lot of fun. Just knowing that people benefit from it, and as long as they take those skills and apply them at work, that's what I look for. So I just enjoy training, and especially if we can put some hands-on to it, that's really the best training that we can do.
We are continuing our conversation with State Representative Drew Darby. When we were speaking last, we were talking about water. Of course, one of the big issues that Texas voters just passed just recently is Proposition 6, which spends $2 billion on future water projects. What do you think that could potentially mean for San Angelo?
Well, I think, again, it's absolutely critical that we have this financing infrastructure available for this region to advance the next water project. We actually didn't spend $2 billion. We simply took an investment from one fund, our rainy day fund, and moved it to another dedicated account, which is the Water Infrastructure Bank. But what that $2 billion, together with the $6 billion in water bonds that we approved in a previous November, then that money will be able to advance some $26 billion worth of projects forward, because that's an evergreen fund. As that fund is loaned out to municipalities and regions and water districts for water improvements, then that will be paid back by water users with interest. And then it'll be reinvested in other projects. Now, what that fund does, it allows particularly regions. And I know you want to talk about the Tri-City Partnership, and that is another critical piece of the puzzle. While we may have temporary emergency use of the Hickory Aquifer, it is not designed to supplement wholly the entire use for the city of San Angelo. It just can't do it. There's not that much there, and we're not legally permitted to take enough to provide for all of the needs of the city of San Angelo for an extended period of time. It is designed to be an emergency source of water. But what we've done, and I congratulate the leadership of this city, we've partnered with the City of Midland and the City of Abilene to form the Tri-City Water Partnership. And we are looking collectively as a group to the next water source. Not 10 years out, not 20 years out, but 30 years out. Now, these are big projects because we're looking not just simply geographically right here in West Texas. We have to expand our horizon out, and there are political pitfalls associated with that. Once you try to go get water from another area, then there's what's called inter and intra-basin transfers. The local groundwater districts and the people in that area, they want to make sure that they have enough for their own resources and needs, and they look, with a jaundiced eye, if you will, on somebody coming into their region to try to get water. So it's going to take a very long and protracted process, and we've started that process. But what the Water Infrastructure Bank will be is, once this project is identified and the problems associated are ready to go forward, then that's going to be a huge project. That could literally be a $300 to $500 million project. Well, that far outstrips the resources of San Angelo, far outstrips the resources of Midland, far outstrips the resources of Abilene. But together, collectively, it is a project that serves the water needs of this region. We're in Region F. So the argument can be made that if the Water Development Board will finance this project at very low interest rates, then the water needs of a whole region may be addressed. And so when you address the water needs of San Angelo, Abilene, and Midland, you're also addressing the needs of Odessa, Big Spring, Ballinger, Bront, Robert Lee, all the communities in the area, because we therefore might have the ability to deliver treated water to the smaller communities. So this is a wonderful example of regional cooperation. I am very supportive of that, and we're going to need to make sure we take our time and identify the right project, make sure we have all the parameters in place, contracts, legislative authority. There's going to be a huge legislative initiative once we identify this project, and making sure that we have the rights to obtain the water in that region. So I think it's going to give us the opportunity to forward think out not just the next 5 years or 10 years, but the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And I think that's what's going to be critical.
Of course, one of the other priorities that you worked on from a legislative perspective is transportation, and that seems to be a heightened need, with all the oil field development going on. Talk a little bit about what you're working on in order to help improve the roadways and the highways around San Angelo.
Well, thank you, Anthony, for that question. I'm passionate about transportation and transportation needs. I'm keenly aware that San Angelo is not a very big seaport out here. We just don't have a lot of ships coming into San Angelo. Nor do we have a lot of cargo planes coming to our airport. What we do have are thousands, hundreds of thousands worth of trucks that bring food and fiber in and out of this community, bring hide and hair to marketplace. They provide the lifeblood for the oil and gas industry. And so while the state is enjoying a bountiful return on oil and gas exploration and receiving millions, if not billions of dollars worth of economic benefit, job creations, etc., we also have an obligation to reinvest some of that bounty back into the very regions that are bearing that burden. And here's the dilemma. People in metropolitan Houston or Dallas or Fort Worth, they like to receive the sales taxes and the severance taxes associated with oil and gas production. There's very little production in Dallas County. Some in Barnett Shale and Tarrant County, very little in Bexar County, Travis County, Houston. They're reluctant to agree to reinvest part of that money back into highways. We have an income stream for our road building that has been basically limited since 1991. Our gasoline tax has not been adjusted since 1991, and our registration fees have not been adjusted since 1985. So while we've had the same income stream, how have we dealt as a state with the 1,500 people that are moving to the state every year for the last 10 years? Well, we've done it by using our credit card. We've simply said we don't have the political will to adjust the revenue stream to accommodate the needs. What we're going to do is ask the voters to approve bonds, debt, credit card. That's what it is, and the voters have. We've advanced $17 billion worth of transportation debt over the last 10 years. Well, guess what? That bond money is gone. We've maxed our credit card. There's no more borrowing from the credit card. And now we've got to pay that $17 billion back to the tune of about $31 billion, which is what it is plus interest. So now we've got to pay that back, which digs our hole even deeper. So I want to revert back to a pay-as-you-go system. I think it's prudent for the people of Texas to recognize we have a need to invest in our infrastructure, just like we're investing in water infrastructure and what we're investing in public education, which I consider one of our strongest resources, our school children, our public education system. And we have to invest in jobs and in transportation. For without that investment, we're not going to have jobs. We're not going to have the need for education or water if we don't have roads that can accommodate the needs of the population. So I think it all works hand in hand. I prefer to invest in the future of Texas, and that's how I'm very passionate about. We need to look at that. There's some that want to say no. There's some that they consider no is the right public policy. I'm one of these guys that say we need to We need to learn how to say yes to the infrastructure investment of Texas.
As we're filming this, just the day prior, you attended the first annual meeting of the West Texas Energy Consortium, which was dealing with a lot of oil field related issues for the local communities and counties of this area. What is your take on what the Klein Shale development is going to mean for San Angelo and Tom Green County?
Well, I think irrespective of the ultimate resource itself, the Klein Shale formation is such a vast and thick deposit. We know the deposit is there, but we don't know right now whether or not the technology has advanced to a place where we can extract it economically. That's the issue. They're drilling test wells in the Klein, trying to find out the size and extent of the reservoir, and whether or not they have the techniques, hydrofracking techniques, to extract the oil from the formation. There's no question that the Wolfberry, west of San Angelo, and the Wolf Camp in Big Lake, Reagan, Erie County, that is prolific. They know how to, that oil is there in place, and they know how to extract it, and they're making terrific advancements in oil and gas production in that area. What's different about the Klein is it's more geographically expansive, it's thicker, and we just don't, I don't know that we have the techniques yet, but we will have. But what we are seeing, and you're seeing in Big Spring and other Sweetwater and Abilene, San Angelo and other communities, is you're having an influx of service personnel to meet not only the drilling needs that we're seeing west of San Angelo, but you're seeing the production needs. Once they put these wells on place, then you've got to have pumpers and pipeline folks and folks that tend to the batteries and the compressors and all of that. So we're going to have housing demands. We've got water pressures. I mean, we've got needs of water. That's being addressed by the industry, as you heard yesterday, that they're learning how to recycle fresh water and use brine water in the production efforts. All of that, I keep encouraging them, keep trying to advance that technology that we can cohabitate as a region. You know, when I see communities like Barnhart running out of water because they have a single water well providing 60 taps for that community. But their one water well for the city of Barnhart is surrounded by about 5 water wells by oil and gas companies. They're producing water from deeper horizons, and they found water deeper. The citizens of Barnhart are going without water. They're worried about not having any water, while the very oil and gas industry that they're supporting around them, they have the water. So we have to balance that. How do we balance the need for this wonderful oil and gas production with the reality that we have to have citizens that live in our communities that need to have access to water for their daily consumption and use also? And so that is a huge challenge. And I think one of the biggest challenges of facing our region is how do we balance agriculture, agribusiness, municipal, and exploration of oil and gas? How do we balance all that?
We've been talking with our state representative, Darby, and we hope you'll be with us for the next episode of The City.